carrier for social justice and exemplifies the passion and commitment necessary to fight inequities based on race and ethnicity. Kerry Kennedy is the president of the Robert F. Kennedy Human Rights, which was founded by Robert Kennedy's family and friends in 1968, is a living memorial to carry forward his vision of a more just and peaceful world. She's worked on diverse human rights issues such as children's rights, child labor, disappearances, indigenous land rights, judicial independence, freedom of expression, ethnic violence, impunity, and the environment. And she's concentrated specifically on women's rights, exposing injustices, educating audience about women's issues, particularly honor killings, sexual slavery, domestic violence, workplace discrimination, sexual assault, and the abuse of prisoners. She's worked in over 60 countries and led hundreds of human rights delegations at a time of diminished idealism and growing cynicism about public service. Her life and lectures are testaments to the commitment of the basic values of human rights. Ms. Kennedy, author of New York Times bestseller, Being Catholic Now and Speak Truth to Power, Human Rights Defenders Who Are Changing Our World. Ms. Kennedy has been working on global human rights since 1981, when she investigated abuses committed by U.S. immigration officials against refugees in El Salvador. She's the founder of the RFK Speak Truth to Power, a global human rights education initiative and core program of RFK Human Rights, which is now taught to more than 1 million students around the world, from Cambodia to California. Ms. Kennedy is the chair of Amnesty International Leadership Council and serves on the board of directors of the Human Rights First Interpress Service and the U.S. Institute for Peace. She has served in numerous political campaigns and is a member of the Massachusetts and District of Columbia bars. She's a graduate of the University of Brown University and of Boston College Law School, where she also holds honorary doctorates of law from Le Moyne College and the University of San Francisco Law School, along with human letters from Bay Path College and the Albany College of Pharmacy. She is the mother of 3 daughters, Cara, Mariah, and Michaela, and it is our privilege to honor Ms. Kennedy today for an outstanding career of selfless service, for her unprecedented life devoted to the pursuit of justice, the promotion and protection of basic human rights, and the preservation of rule of law.
Thank you so much. Well, I'm really happy to be here at the Chamber today and in this great setting. Isn't it fun to see all these Jerry Garcia first thing in the morning? This is Women's History Month, and people often ask me, what do you think the greatest challenge we face as a world in human rights is today? Can I just say something? I'm a human rights activist. Okay, and I think that violence against women is certainly up at the top for human rights violations around the world. Violence against women directly impacts every woman on earth, and therefore their families and their friends and everybody else on earth. So it's the one human rights violation that impacts every human being. And violence against women can be by family, by strangers, by governments in time of war, and the failure of governments to prosecute that violence makes misogyny all the more acceptable in society at large. Across the world, women who are badgered and beaten and brutalized and raped can expect police and prosecutors and judges to fail to investigate crimes, fail to prosecute, and to dismiss charges. 1 in 3 women is sexually assaulted in her lifetime in our world. 1 in 3 women. And in the United States, 1 in 5 girls is sexually assaulted by the time she's 18 years old. Still, we have more animal shelters in the United States than battered women's shelters, 4 times as many. You think it's hard to believe? Count up the women you know who have been sexually assaulted. I know 14 women have come to me and told me they've been raped. 14, so count them. If you can't count them, it's not because it didn't happen. It's just that they were too ashamed to tell or too sure that nothing would happen as a result. Of those 14 women who told me, 1 told the police, and her case was dismissed. At Robert F. Kennedy Human Rights, one of the ways we're addressing violence against women is through litigation. And I'd like to tell you one of the cases that we've taken most recently. It's the case of a woman called Jennifer Linehan. And I want to start by, is it hard to hear?
Can you hear us back?
Yeah. Speak a little louder.
Sorry.
Thanks. This is a tough case, so I'm going to begin by apologizing for talking about this at breakfast. But Jennifer Linehan was a woman living in Colorado 15 years ago. She was divorced from her husband, and they had 4 children, 3 girls and a boy, 2, 4, 6, and 8 years old. And she had a protective order, and each of her kids had a protective order against her husband. Her husband came to the house and kidnapped the children. She went to the 3 older girls. She called the police 6 times and asked them, begged them to go and find her kids, and said that their lives are at risk, and the police did not respond to her. She is a woman, she is an Indian, and she was Latina. And she went to the police station. They still refused to respond to her. A few hours later, her husband showed up at the police station, a pickup truck, and opened fire on the police station. The police fired back and killed him. And when they opened the door of the pickup truck, they found the 3 little girls who had also been shot to death. They never found out. She still does not know to this day who killed her children and how that happened. They never investigated that crime. She took her case against the police for failure to protect all the way up to the United States Supreme Court, and Justice Roberts ruled that she had the police had no obligation to protect her. Now, what does that mean for all of us, for all of our friends, for all of the women in the United States who need protective orders for men like this? What does this mean? Well, for most people, you would think if you go to the Supreme Court and they rule against you, that's the end of it. But we work in the international human rights, and there are courts that are world courts and regional courts that are higher than the United States Supreme Court. So we took this case to the Inter-American Commission on Human Rights, and then the Inter-American Court on Human Rights, and we won. We won in December. What does that mean? In the United States, it's not precedent-setting, but it is morally valuable, and so we're using that to lobby the Justice Department to have, to get them to change the protocols that they send out to police departments and how to treat these cases. But it also does have precedential value internationally. So we won in December. On January 15th, there was a case in Kenya, a very similar case, and the judge in that case looked at the case we won with Jennifer Linehan in the Inter-American system and said police will be held accountable across Kenya. So You know, violence against women does not only impact, it's not only about the impact on women and their families and their communities. I believe that violence is learned. It's learned behavior. And so if you learn it in your home, then you learn that the way to resolve conflict is through violence in general. And that leads, and you learn that there's an acceptance of hate, that hate is an okay way to go through life. And that's why it's so very, very, very important to address these issues. So, and if you look at the headlines around the world today, the essence of of the greatest issues we face in the world are all about hate, whether it's ISIS or the Taliban or Boko Haram in Nigeria, whether it's the hatred against LGBTI people there are 12 African countries currently considering legislation which would make homosexuality punishable by life in prison without parole or the death penalty. You're looking at ethnic violence against Tibetans by the Chinese or ethnic communities in Burma. We're looking at women in Guatemala, Honduras, and Mexico, which are 3 of the most dangerous places on earth to be a woman. 3 of the 5 most dangerous countries on earth where femicide is highest. We're looking at Haitians in the Dominican Republic and Dominicans of Haitian descent. And here in our own country, the reaction to the Eric Garner case and other cases like that across our country, that has to do with this perception of hate. And we need to address this. We need to address it as a society, as a community, and particularly as New York City. And it impacts our lives, our communities, our schools, and our businesses. And so one of the ways, as I said, the RK Center is doing this is through litigation, but there's another way, and it's through education. And I just want to tell you a little bit about that. It's our Speak Truth to Power Human Rights Education program. So if you go into any public school in New York, you will see someplace, you will see written the words bitch, or nigger, or fag, or retard. Absolutely. And kids are confronted by that hate speech dozens of times each day. And when they are confronted by it, when they hear an ethnic joke or an ethnic slur, they have to make a decision. Are they going to go along or are they going to stand up? And each time they make that decision, it's like they're exercising a muscle. Are they exercising the stand-up muscle or the go-along muscle? And when they exercise that muscle gets stronger and stronger and stronger. So by the time they reach the adult world, they don't even have to make a decision. They are just automatically going to that stronger muscle. And what we do at Speak Truth to Power is we teach them how to exercise that stand-up muscle. And it's really making an enormous difference in this city. And I would encourage all of you, if you have kids in schools, or if you have a particular school that you work with, please get in touch with us. And this is a free educational resource, and we will bring it to your schools. One of the ways that we teach that is through examples of great human rights leaders like Nelson Mandela and His Holiness the Dalai Lama and Archbishop Tutu. And I'd just like to close by saying this. You know, people ask me, don't you get depressed working in human rights because, torture and death and rape, etc. all the things I just spoke about? And my answer is no, because my experience has been that we are moving in the right direction. And when I started working in human rights in the 1980s, all of Latin America was under right-wing military dictatorships. And today there's not one left standing. And all of Eastern Europe was under communist control, and there's not a communist leader left in Eastern Europe. And South Africa was under apartheid. And today, South Africa has been led by a series of freely elected governments, elected by a majority of their people. And women's rights was not even on the international agenda. In fact, it wasn't until Hillary Clinton went to Beijing in 1995 and declared women's rights are human rights that women's rights became really on the international agenda. And all of those changes took place. And now CEDAW, which is the Women's Rights Convention, has been ratified by 183 different countries. So
That's the good news.
all of those changes happened not because governments wanted them to. Governments tried to stop them. And not because armies wanted them to. Armies tried to stop them. And not because huge multinational corporations wanted them to. Sometimes multinational corporations tried to stop them. But small groups of determined people, as Margaret Mead said, bound together and harnessed the dream of freedom and made it come true. And that's what's happening here today. This is a small group of determined people. Everybody in this room, you're in the industry, you have your own companies, you have your own piece of a larger company. You're here today because you want to create change and you want to make our city stronger, our community stronger, our world stronger. And you have the power to do that. You have the power to do that, and we have got to do that. We need to do that for our children, for our community, for our country, and for our world. And so I want to say thank you to the Chamber for this honor, but I really want to say thank you to all of you for coming here today. Thank you.